Hi, I'm Joe Welinske, and I'm here to talk with many of the people that will be involved in our UX Writer Conference coming up, and also just to have a great conversation with colleagues in the area of UX writing. So today I am talking with Mario Ferrer. Hello, Mario. How are you today?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me. I hope it is an interesting conversation. We're not like up something from the start, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well,
very
I guess
interesting.
just one of the things about recording this during the quarantine period is that things tend to be a bit more relaxed, and we
Yeah,
have
definitely.
our children join us and pets, and you never know what's going to happen. That's all
Exactly.
good.
It's always a surprise, but as we were saying earlier, it's sort of like the new normal. So, I mean, you might see some kids popping in and saying, hi, what you doing? But hey,
Yeah, it's all good.
this is
Well, where are
exactly.
you talking to us from? What's your home base?
I'm based in Barcelona in Spain. So it's a lovely afternoon here. It's 6:30 in the afternoon now. So yeah, I'm based in Barcelona.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. And I've known you by reputation from other people mentioning your name and your involvement. But, I'm interested in knowing more about your background as well. So maybe talk a little bit about the things that you're involved in.
Sure. I mean, again, thanks for having me. This is a very interesting opportunity, and I think the conference can be a very nice way for all of us to learn a little bit more about what UX writing is and what UX writers do, right? So, I'm originally from Mexico, and I moved over here to Spain like 11 years ago now. So yeah, it's a long time. I come from a copywriting background. I used to write for ad agencies over in Mexico and the US at the beginning, like radio spots and TV spots and things like that. And then when I moved over here, I started working at tech companies again as a copywriter. And it wasn't until I landed on King that I discovered that there was this whole new thing. It didn't quite have a name, but they've sort of like, it was a happy accident. They were like, okay, so we're going to sit you here with the people that do user experience, and you go and do your writing with them and see what happens, right? And then it was very interesting because when you come from an ad background, the way you write and the way you explain and the way you communicate is completely different from what you do as a UX writer. So for me, it was sort of like a cultural shock. I always call it like that because I had to learn a lot of things that I didn't have idea and how to apply those into writing. So back then the name UX writer started to come up and everything. And then one day, like my principal scientist told me, like, maybe you're not doing copywriting anymore. You're doing this thing that's called UX writing. And I was like, yeah, maybe, I guess. So that's how I started. It was definitely a happy accident. And since I started doing that, I never looked back. I mean, I have a profound respect for everything that has to do with advertising and marketing, everything, because that's where I come from. And they're still a huge chunk of what the user experience is because that's the first contact all of us have with a new product or service. But when you start working in design and when you figure it out that every single thing that you do has to have a purpose to help people do whatever it is that they've come here to do and they can just get on with their lives, that for me is an amazing, and it's a very fruitful challenge, right? And I started my career as a UX writer in a games company at King, which is they're makers of Candy Crush, so they're a huge company. So we had players from all over the world, and we would translate everything I wrote to like 23 languages. So it was at the beginning I wasn't very aware, but then I was like, okay, so this is a pretty big deal. So I had to learn a lot of things really fast. So that's on one side, and then the other side is in Spain and in Europe, except for maybe the UK and some of like the northern countries, everything that has to do with UX writing or content design or even content strategy, it's like a very new thing and it's not available to many companies, or there's not many roles out there. So it was last year that I just started like reaching out to people that had the same job title over on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, I'm the only one that does this at my company, and it feels lonely, and I want to see if there's more people like on the same situation, if we have the same problems, if you have solutions for my problems, let's grab a beer. And that just started growing and growing and growing. And it's been a year now. And we try to do like meetups and talks like every month and a half, 2 months. Well, now it's been a little bit different with this whole thing. We've gone fully online, and now it's becoming a huge community here in Spain, where people come in and they sometimes they vent, sometimes they rant, but most of the times they come to share their experience and help others. So something that started organically is keeping growing, and it's this whole mindset of like, there's not that many jobs here in Spain, so let's try to get more people into this, so that way more companies understand what happens with this, and hopefully this will all benefit the rest of us to keep growing. So that's, in a nutshell, my story.
Yeah, well, no, it's a great story, and one of the things that is interesting to me about the label of UX writer is that it's something that is emblematic, and that people that get involved with it, feel like it represents what they do and what their organization expects of them. Yet the skills that we bring to it on one hand are very different depending on our backgrounds, but also those skills are present in other areas of writing. So the interesting part to me is what it really is that becomes this unifying element of UX writing, and it sounds like one way or another you were able to find that in your community there, which brought people together.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, you'll see that there's a lot of labels and a lot of titles in different companies. For me, it's not about the title. I don't care if they call me a UX writer, or if they call me a product content writer, or if they call me a content designer, because yes, some of the things are not interchangeable. I'll give you that. But for me, it's more important of like what I can do to make a change and how I can help from, let's say, my tool set, which is words, get those together with proper code and a proper visual design to make sure we deliver something that makes sense and that's meaningful, right? So I think it, as you said, it goes beyond of whatever name or label it has. It's come to a point where the role UX writer, that's one of the biggest ones out there, especially because like big companies in the US, that's how they've named the role. So I don't know if this will be in 10 years, this will change, because it's pretty much, we're going a lot through like what product designers went through. At the beginning, they were called UX UI or interaction designers or HCIs. It varied. And now it's been distilling into like sort of like product designer. So I'm guessing in our case, it might happen something like that, but who knows? For me, it's more important to understand what is it that we can do for others and how we can help people that are using our product or service, but also how we can help others that want to join the craft to understand what is sort of like the responsibility, right? How they can leverage words to change, to make a change within their apps or their websites or whatever it is that they're going to be working on.
Well, just looking at the the experience that you've had, what are some of the sort of the day-to-day activities, or some of the the project directions that you've worked on that have been part of this entrance into the UX writing area? So maybe take us a little bit into the specifics of what that job meant to you.
Sure. Again, I think this is one of like the it depends type of question, right? Because it depends where, first, the type of product or service that you work in, and it also depends the team that you're in. The thing, I can only speak for my past experience. Since I used to work at a games company, that's very different from like a regular product, right? Because yes, the game is a product, but you have to deal with other sorts of designs, which I'll explain to also in my talk. Is you have like your game designers that are people that, in a nutshell, try to make the game fun and understand how the mechanics work. But you also have the narrative designers that have to create this universe and everything that like encompasses the story, right? So for us to come in and try to like, okay, so these people have been designing games for years, and UX in games, it's fairly new, but it's getting there. So how do we make sure that we understand what their needs are, and we can use our skills to help them get that message out there, right? So basically is being part of that team from the start, attending their meetings, attending the rituals, make sure that you're in the same room as them as much as possible. Because what you can't do is you can't come at the end, and because this happens sadly still a lot. They'll tell you like, oh, everything's designed, everything's ready, just put some copy in it, make it sound nice. That's very hard. Because if you don't have the context of what happened, or if you don't know what is the problem you're trying to solve, it's very hard to try to like catch up to help out. So if you as a UX writer can be there from the beginning, like the rest of the team is, the better. Because that way you understand what the context is, you understand what the problem is you're trying to solve, and you can also provide your perspective on what the solution might be. That's what I find really enriching about working in UX design or in design is, since you work with people with different skill sets, the problem is always at the center. But the perspectives on how to solve them vary depending from skill set to skill set. So when you put all of those together, the solution that you come up with is much, much stronger, because you're taking into account things that I'll never think about. I mean, I'm not a visual designer or a graphic designer or a product designer. I don't code for a living, and I don't do research. I understand what that means, but I don't do it. So my brain is not wired to think like that. And the same way for them. I'm always trying to think about how we can leverage language to help out, and they don't, because they're not trained to do that. So when you put all of those together, you come up with a much, much stronger solution. At least that's what I've experienced so far.
Well, in your collaboration with all the different roles that you mentioned, are there any certain tools or technologies that you used at King that made it possible to meld your contributions with the other work that was going on?
Yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing at King is we are it's a very big company, and teams tend to be distributed. And for example, in my particular case, I had some teammates in Berlin, I had some teammates in Stockholm, some of us were here in Barcelona, and then we had some teammates in London. So as you can imagine, it was at the beginning a little bit of a chaos, right? So the idea is, how do you find tools that help you collaborate better? So it depends on teams. Some of the teams used Figma to do this because it was a little bit more straightforward. Some of the other teams use Sketch and Abstract to keep having that version control. Obviously, part of that toolkit is always going to be either a Slack or any type of like messaging system that you can keep a conversation flowing. And if everything fails, just a phone call. Because sometimes it's like, how can you explain to people what is it that you're trying to solve based on what you have on screen? The only suggestion that I always make, and I mean, this is what I learned a long time ago from John Saito, that he had this brilliant blog post that he said, stop writing in docs, start writing in mocks. So when you're writing on a document, it's just a white piece of paper and you have no context. But when you start writing on that wireframe, on that Macop or anything, you see how everything is coming into form. So when you start adding your content or your words into that, everything becomes much, much clearer, and you can from the get-go start seeing like, this might not work, or this might work better if we split the message in two, things like that, that if you do it by your own, it's impossible. So the more you can collaborate, the better. And not just with your direct team. Sometimes there's people that are adjacent to experience that you also have to take into account. Like I was saying before, people in marketing, people in legal, people in our case, player support. Everything is part of that experience. For us, it's different teams, different people, different cities, but the people that are using the games, for them, it's the same thing. They don't care who's writing what or who's building what or who's designing what. For them, it's the game, and everything is part of that. So most of the companies are far away from this. Some of the companies are doing it better, but as a whole thing, ideally you want to find ways to collaborate better between every single part of that process. But it's tough. It's tough.
Well, as you move on to new areas of opportunity, are there any particular aspects of UX writing and things related to it that you're interested in getting into? Is there any certain industries or product types that particularly have your interest?
More than product types, I'm really interested lately, and I need to get much more experience and understand better is like how we make sure that everything that we write works better across cultures and across languages. Because when you work with English as your primary source, you tend to think only in English. But then when you start seeing that there's so many people that use your product or service, and sometimes what you write in English, when it gets translated to other languages, it doesn't quite work the same. For me, that's interesting. Is like how do we make that collaboration work better? Because for example, I can tell you I can speak Spanish, I speak French, I speak English, and I speak Catalan, but I don't speak Russian, I don't speak Egyptian, I don't speak Portuguese. So yes, you can have some sort of quality control of what you speak, but it's impossible to understand all the languages. So for me, what's very interesting is understanding how globalization or localization, depending on how the company calls it, and UX writing can work better from the beginning to help of those people that English might not be their first language, or that they just don't speak it at all, have the same experience as people that have the primary English experience.
Yeah, well, I know that's going to be a big challenge area because organizations that have to deal with that suddenly being able to do that effectively and efficiently a lot of times starts to govern all aspects of the design and development process. So,
Yes.
so I think it'll be an exciting challenge when you're able to get involved in that.
Yeah. It's a big scary problem to crack. And as you said, in the end, it's like, I mean, companies have to stay profitable and they have to make everything as lean as and scalable as possible. So finding I'm not sure if there's like a solution, but finding solutions that are actually scalable for that particular, let's call it a problem, yeah, because it is a design problem. It's going to be interesting finding who actually cracks it in the right way.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me for a little bit today, and I look forward to working with you when we get to our virtual conference. I don't think I mentioned that before, but it's all online, so we'll see you there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for the invite, and I'm really looking forward and hope that what I've learned over the years is useful to someone else out there. So yeah, I mean, see you online.
All right, I'm sure it'll be great. Thanks a lot, Mario. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joe. Bye.